we're going to talk about, can a seller back out of a real estate contract? We're also going to talk about, can a buyer back out of a real estate contract? And I got to tell you that I focus on real estate investing. Yes, I have a license, but I don't ever use it. And I have like 57 deals in the last 3 years. So I know a couple different things about negotiating. I know a couple things about contracts. And I'm going to focus this video specifically on creative financing. All right. So I don't talk about contracts and going to the bank or going to a mortgage broker or going through, regular real estate contracts. I'm going to talk about you becoming a real estate investor and what can happen on creative financing deals so that you can start buying these houses super fast. All right, we're going to really talk about a lease option and whether a seller can back out of a lease option contract. We're going to talk about subject to deals and if a seller can back out of those contracts. And then finally, we're going to talk about owner financing contracts, which are my absolute favorite ways to buy houses. All right, those are my 3 favorite ways, but owner financing is like up at the top of the totem pole. So we're going to save that puppy for last. Okay, so let's talk about a lease option first. Now, a lease option is a really fancy rental agreement that gives you, as the real estate investor, the opportunity to buy the house in the future for a price we agree upon today. All right? So you just become a really glorified tenant in the minds of the seller. Now, in this contract, the seller is going to say, for me on my deals, let's say the seller's going to say, all right, Whitney, I'm going to give you 10 years to buy my house for $120,000. You're going to pay $800 a month. And at the end of 10 years, you're going to have a balloon payment due. And I'm going to say, okay, Mr. Seller, I'm going to be buying your house. I'm going to make the payments. I'm going to take care of all the repairs. All you got to do is nothing. So in this contract, for the next 10 years, my seller cannot back out of our contract. The seller cannot sell the house to anybody else. I'm going to take this contract, this full-blown contract that I get made from my attorney every single time I buy these houses. I'm going to take this contract and I'm going to cloud the title. I'm going to put an option, a recorded option at the county clerk's office that says, I have the first right of refusal to buy this house. I'm making the payments for the next 10 years. I get to buy it for the price that we agreed upon. And when 10 years are up, I will close. That's how it works in a lease option contract. Once the contract has been signed, once it's been notarized, and certainly once I've filed it with the county, a seller can't back out of that deal. We're rocking and rolling. I'm taking care of the property, and the seller's off golfing or living at the beach or doing whatever it is the sellers do once I get their house under contract with a lease option. So, second way that we can buy houses, the creative financing way, is something called subject to. Now, subject to is not my favorite way, but it is something that we need to talk about because lots of people get confused. Should I do subject to or should I do a lease option? And what is the difference? So let's talk about that real quick. In a subject to deal, you are telling the seller, I'm going to take over your property subject to the mortgage staying in your name, Mr. Seller. The title will come into my name, but the mortgage is going to stay in your name. Now that gets kind of weird, and the banks don't really like that. So the banks have this cute little clause in all of their contracts with the seller that says if the seller does this, the bank can call the whole note due. That's called the due on sale clause. And that is an ugly little varmint that I can't go to sleep with at night. I just can't. I can't for the life of me figure out why you would do a subject to deal and worry about the bank calling the note due when you could just as easily, just as quickly, just as officially buy the house with a lease option. That title transferring to your name in a subject to is what sends up a red flag at the bank that says, uh-oh, something weird's going on over there. In a lease option, you don't get the title in your name. You cloud the title, but the title doesn't actually transfer to your name, so the bank doesn't get their panties in a ruffle. Would you rather do a whole bunch of deals and not have the banks upset with you and breathing down your neck? Or would you rather have the title in your name and worry about waking up one morning with the bank knocking on the house saying, hey, you got to cash this thing out now. Boom. For me, I would much rather do a lease option deal. So that's what I do. Now, in a subject to deal, can the seller still back out? Technically, no. Once I've started making payments, once I've started repairing the property, once I've changed the title into my name in a subject to deal, seller can't back out. We're done here. So, in a lease option, after we got things rocking and rolling, they can't back out. In a subject to deal, once we've got things rocking and rolling, they can't back out. Now, let's talk about owner financing. Some parts of the country call this seller financing. It doesn't really matter to me if you call it owner financing or seller financing. It still means the owner, the seller, the previous property landlord, they have now become the bank for you. That's right. In owner financing, I'm in Tennessee, and we call it owner financing in Tennessee. So in owner financing, this is done on free and clear properties. So believe it or not, 25% of the houses in America don't have a mortgage on them. Those puppies are perfect for owner financing. Because owner financing says there's no mortgage, there's no lien, there's no line of credit, there's nothing stacked up against this property. It is owned free and clear. That means the owner, the seller, the person who enjoyed this property before you, that means they can literally become the bank themselves and finance the property to you. Now, in my experience, these people don't want any money down. The sellers that I find to do owner financing deals are one particular type of seller in one particular neighborhood, and as long as they're there, I never need any other people. I never need any other sellers. Because guess what? These sellers are everywhere. You know who I'm talking about? Tired landlords. People who either bought a house on purpose and then started renting it out and then got tired of toilets and tenants, or people who accidentally became a landlord. Maybe they inherited a house that they didn't want to deal with. Maybe they had a house and wanted to move and their first house didn't sell, so they thought, it's okay, honey, we'll just become landlords. And then that got to be too much with the toilets and the tenants again. So as long as you're talking to tired landlords, especially if they've got an empty house and they don't have the stomach to landlord anymore, they love owner financing deals. And they love for you to just start sending them some money every month. Now, the contract with owner financing deals is just a little bit different than a lease option, because a lease option is just a really fancy rental agreement with the opportunity to buy the house in the future. An owner financing deal is actually a contract with the seller that says you're going to make them X amount of payments. You're going to take 15 to 20 years, or 30, who knows, to pay them off. It says maybe you give them $100 because you need vested interest in the property. That's fine. And then in 3 months, you'll start sending them payments, which gives you plenty of time to find somebody to move into that house to actually make your payments for you. It's pretty cool, huh? So that person would be the buyer. We'll get to the buyer in a second. Let's finish the sellers first. Once I have found a seller who is willing to let me make them payments on a house that they own free and clear, now we have an owner financing contract put in place. We've both signed it. We've both agreed to it. We got it notarized. And again, I file it at the county courthouse or the clerk and master or whatever your county calls this. You have to put these things on record or they don't really exist. And once it's gone that far, that seller can't back out of the deal. So, lease options, subject to deals, and owner financing are absolutely amazing, and they work in any and every state, except for Texas. You can only do owner financing in Texas. They don't really like lease options, but we got workarounds for that. Anyway, so that's the deal. The seller can't back out of the contract once we've got it filed. Once we've gone all the way through this process, they can't back out. If you want to know more, I do have another video about how to salvage a deal that's going south on you. Maybe you're not to the closing table yet. Maybe you don't have the full-blown contract signed, notarized, and filed with the county. Sometimes sellers start to get some cold feet. They start to get a little nervous. They start talking to people that have no idea about real estate, and they start listening to those people's opinions, and then the deal starts to look a little sour, starts to go a little south. If you want to know how to salvage those deals, I have another video coming up. But also, if you're super interested in lease options and owner financing, I teach women how to do this every single day all across the country. We're buying houses and not using our money, even though we got some. We're buying houses and not using credit, even though our credit is really good. We're buying houses and never talking to a mortgage broker, which let me tell you, from 9 really, years of being in real estate, those mortgage brokers get so tiresome because they want anything and everything that's ever had to do with you, your taxes, and your firstborn kid. So I get rid of all of that trash. I'm not calling mortgage brokers trash. I'm just saying bankers, mortgage brokers, credit, all that crap. I buy houses directly from the sellers with lease options and owner financing. If you want to learn more about that, it's all in a program called First Deal Done Fast. And all the information is on firstdealdonefast.com. Check it out, but don't forget to subscribe to this channel, share the video, or give me a comment if I said something that confused you. Please, please, please. I love having conversations in the comments. So please, if I said something you don't understand, drop a comment and let me know. If you're interested in learning about how to salvage a deal that's going south, check out the next video coming up.